All right, we are live. Welcome back to another webinar. Appreciate you guys taking time to join me on this. So we got some people live already on this. If you're watching the replay, sorry I didn't get to check out the live event, but yeah, those of you who join me live, I'm going to have a Q&A at the end of the presentation, so you guys get a chance to ask me questions and all that stuff. But in the meantime, I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes, see if some more people are going to come on. But if you are live with me, you see there's a little chat room thing over there, and you can write a little message and introduce yourself and write a little message here. Thanks for joining. Yeah, so yeah, go ahead and write a little message, introduce yourself, let me know where you're from. I always like to see where people are from on these things. But there's Sergio saying hi. So kicking it off. All right, so guess we'll go ahead and get started. My name is James Wilson, for those of you that know me. For those of you that don't know me, I own MTB Strength Training Systems and have a website, bikejames.com. And I've spent the last 10 years, actually more than that, since 2005, so it's going on 11 plus years when I created MTB Strength Training Systems. And the goal of MTB Strength Training Systems was to provide my fellow riders with the resource that I couldn't find when I started riding, which was, you know, what is good strength and conditioning information and how it applies to mountain biking. And so you got some more people coming in, got some people from, got a local dude from Boulder, Houston, Santa Rosa, California. Welcome everybody. So cool, yeah, just keep coming in, saying hi. Yeah, getting back to the, you know, kind of what led me to this point here is, you know, I've had a long strength journey with the strength training stuff and the mountain bike training stuff, and how those two things are combined, because I've found that a lot of times there's some discrepancies between what I learned in the strength training world and some of the stuff that we're necessarily teaching people to do on the bikes. And so trying to help provide people with a resource to you know, kind of cut through some of that BS and get better stuff is really my goal. But you know, over the years, I've seen a shift in things, especially on the strength training side, with a shift towards a better understanding of movement and how we apply movement to what we're doing in the gym. So when I first started as a trainer, what we taught people was technique or form, right? So, you know, if I was going to teach somebody to do a squat, I would take them in the gym and I would, you know, show them, okay, this is what a squat looks like. Now you do it. And then what I would do is sit and look at all the body parts that weren't in the position that we were told, okay, this is proper form. And I would try to get them to fix those body parts. So if their knees were caving in, I would be telling them, okay, you know, push your knees out and keep your knees away from each other, finding things to help them focus on keeping the knees away. But throughout the, you know, my career, the strength training field has advanced a lot in how we understand movement and how it applies to stuff. And so now, you know, for going back to that squat example, we understand that the knees caving in is a symptom of something else. That's not the knees caving in is not the cause of the bad form or technique that we're seeing. There's something else going on that we need to fix. And when we fix that, it fixes the knees. And so focusing too much on the symptom will, you know, a lot of times you'll miss the cause. And so I did a little video yesterday on this and mentioned, like in medicine, they know to, you know, yeah, you got to address the symptom, but you got to treat the cause. And so if you got a fever, you're not just trying to get somebody to cool down, you're trying to address the infection or the virus or whatever it is that's causing it in the first place. And so the you know, point is understanding this difference between causes and symptoms and how it applies to movement is very important in the gym. And several years ago, I started to make this connection between how we're moving off of the bike and how we're moving on the bike. So for example, the whole you know, hip hinge or deadlift being very important for the attack position on the bike. You know, as far as I know, I'm the first person who really talked about that and made that connection. I still remember the day watching some poor guy at a skills camp trying to get into body position and realizing, like, that dude couldn't do a hip hinge. I couldn't get him off the bike and get him to do a hip hinge in the gym, and yet here he is on the bike trying to do this high level movement without the ability to even perform the basic movement off of the bike. And so, you know, what's he really learning? And so that kind of led me down the road of like, well, how exactly do we move best, and how do we apply that to the bike? And so, over the last, several years, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of riders, not just in a fitness capacity, but also in a technique and skills coaching. Because as far as I see it, if I'm a movement coach, and that's really what I look at myself as a movement coach, I try to help people understand how to move better and how to apply that movement to their sport, and how to, increase the durability and strength of that movement. But movement is really what it all boils down to. So if I'm a movement coach, then, I really have to understand how do the things that I'm teaching people apply to their sport, because it's going to help me teach them better in the gym, but the stuff that I'm teaching them in the gym is going to help them apply the skill stuff to their sport better. And so I've had the unique opportunity of being able to work with some people for, several years, and see how, when you really address some of the root causes of the technique problems, which is their bad movement, that the skill stuff really starts to take on a different, I don't know what the right word is, but you find out that a lot of the common skills training tips they're incomplete. There's more to it, and that once you really get past the fix how somebody's moving and understand the causes of it, then you can get a better, deeper understanding of what you need to be doing to improve your technique on the bike. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my presentation here. So when I'm doing my slides, and the slides are really notes for me to stay on track, because otherwise I'd just go off track and this would take hours. And so, there's a lot of information to cover. I'm going to get through it, relatively quickly, because each one of these three things I'm going to talk about: the elbows out, the light hands, heavy feet, and lean the bike and not the body. Those three tips that we're given. Each one of those could be a webinar by itself. So I'm going to, kind of buzz through these. But as I'm going, if you have any questions or anything like that, type them into the chat box there, and I'll be able to see them when I'm done, and I'll go through and answer them, and we can, hang out here as long as you guys want to, and talk skills training, whatever you guys want to talk about mountain bike wise. That's like my favorite part of these things, is hanging out and getting to talk with you guys after the presentation. So anyways, hopefully that sounds good to everybody. And so just give me a second. I am going to get the screen share going. Still trying to get all this technology stuff figured out. All right, here we go. Boom and boom. Here we go. All right. So the top 3 MTB skills training myths: how to focus on causes and not symptoms. So first off, what are bike skills or technical skills? Again, this is an important question. Like, when we talk about this, what are we talking about? So again, this is my opinion, how I look at it, but I'll explain it here. But I think that they are not a set of memorized and practiced manual inputs into the bike. So the step 1, step 2, step 3, where we're learning, these different, manual inputs and things that we need to do into the bike, and then we try and drill it and memorize it. I don't believe that that's actually what technical bike skills are. Skills really in any sport, and bike skills included here, they are movement skills applied to the bike. And I touched on this a few minutes ago when I was just kind of talking about in general what I look at myself as a movement coach. And so all you're trying to do is figure out, how do I apply movement skills to the bike so that I can maintain good posture, good balance, proper alignment, so I can work efficiently. So that's what we're really looking to try to do with our skills. So why is this important? Because memorized manual inputs rely on thinking, which is slow. Step 1, step 2, step 3 is slow. It takes time to think that. Things happen on the trail too fast for you to be able to think that way. Movement skills rely on feel, which is fast. So I'll use this analogy a lot, because I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the last 3+ years, and it's really helped me, giving me a different perspective on some of this stuff. But for example, when we're learning a technique in Jiu-Jitsu, we'll learn step 1, step 2, step 3. But you talk to a higher level belt and you ask them, are you thinking step 1, step 2, step 3? And they're like, no, I'm not thinking. I'm just doing. I'm feeling what's happening. I'm reacting to the feel. And so they've refined their feel and understanding what movement skills to apply based on what they're feeling. And so the memorized manual inputs kind of give you an insight into the technique, but they're not the technique themselves. You're really trying to use that to give you the insight into what the movement skills and the feel that you're trying to kind of hack, I guess. You're focusing more on movement skills and how to think about step 1, step 2, step 3 and things into the bike. So, more questions here. And again, this is a hard question because you know, a lot of skills coaches in a lot of sports just kind of look at their job and not necessarily understanding movement to how it applies to their sport and how to movement dysfunctions in that sport coach and you know, this is the levels you want to understand. You know, a top you know, track skills coach, running coach, you know, and he's going to understand these movement dysfunctions. He's going to have tools and to run more efficient as he's trying to understand inside stuff. Very effective as a skills coach. Most people have common dysfunctions like short, tight, weak lats and rhomboids. That's just the thing. You know, slumped shoulder. We see that's so common, especially in mountain bikers, because you know, we're sitting all day long, and then we're in sport where we're told and all the time. And you know, I have my thoughts on that. That's another webinar. But the point is that we have there are movement dysfunctions that occur. We also have short and weak glutes and hamstrings. And again, a lot of people are getting more into helping the lower back, the glutes, because they're becoming a little bit better. And again, to these dysfunctions have lateral mobility, and this is really important because our unique lateral hip ability and mobility, especially when we do things like that, but it's really important. So 90+%, I mean 99% of the people that you're going to see these dysfunctions going on. So hard strategy to fix them. What are you really doing? The channel of you are only tensing, and so you know you need to do a skill, but that right understand their dysfunction, how those things are holding them back, and you know, showing someone if their knees are caving, show you look different, them understand that they have, or their hips aren't keeping their, you know, into their hips, and we need, you know, goal, helping them understand what's causing these dysfunctions and how they is. So you can't teach skill in the presence of dysfunction. So I have this thing called the 10-man. It can't pick up the minutes, then it's holding you back. So, you know, if I show you how to corner, basics of feel and all that, you know, 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes to pass. One of the basic concepts of the skill. It's fine. It's movements off of the bike that over time there needs to be fixed off by night. Well, they can 10 minutes. You know, just kind of understanding the basics and how, but really dialed in and I'm not saying people, you know, get it basics and 10 to 15 the move more skill. Encouraging just teaching this again. If you're not and you're just having them practice skills, functions, and you know, way to look at things. You need to have multiple skills coach and really so MTB skills training myth. Steps of the term myth, and so I went and old myth equals a widely idea. So in teaching a symptom as a cause leads to false ideas about good technique. And this makes teaching symptoms as causes a myth. And all three of these things that I'm going to go over today are symptoms, not causes of good technique. And so that's why I consider these to be myths, because they are widely held beliefs that the average person is not applying properly and does not understand the bigger picture. And it's causing a lot of problems with people's skills and their ability to apply proper movement to the bike. So getting into it, MTB skills training myth number 1, elbows out. You don't want your elbows out or in, you want your upper back engaged. And this causes a little confusion. Again, I don't, you know, understanding things like I do, sometimes I don't know what other people don't understand. And so when I say you want your lats and your upper back engaged, people think like, well, you're rowing and chin-ups, like that's what those muscles are for. And so, well, you're not pulling on the handlebars, so you don't want your, you know, what are you talking about? Well, while they can pull, the lats and the rhomboids are also the primary stabilizers of the upper back. In fact, that is their main job. Their main job is stabilization of the shoulders and the upper back. Their secondary job is pulling. They create the platform for your arms to move from, to push and stuff. And so so again, understanding that the lats don't just pull, they also stabilize. And that's a very important thing for them. Disengaged lats and rhomboids lead to the shoulders becoming unpacked. If you ever worked out in a gym and they're talking about keeping your shoulders packed, you know, it's basically like when your shoulder starts to poke out like a turtle head. You also notice that your shoulder blade comes up and out when you do that, moves up the rib cage. Well, when that happens, it makes your shoulders weak and unstable. And so you need to have that upper back engaged and the shoulders packed. So a push-up actually equals proper elbow position. I was talking with someone the other day about this, like, man, honestly, push-ups are just practicing your ability to move effectively through the full range of motion on your cockpit, from all the way down, you know, chin down by the stem to arms extended up, you know, like just whatever purpose, you know. So there's times doing a drop or something like that, you're gonna have to extend your arms and your legs. And so knowing how to efficiently and effectively move your upper body through your cockpit, well, that's your push-up. You're just practicing good body position with that. So your push-up's gonna actually tell you what your proper elbow position is gonna be. In the gym, you teach people how to keep their lats and upper back engaged to stabilize the shoulders while being able to move the shoulder joint. This is extremely important for people to understand in the gym, and it's extremely important to understand on the bike as well. Common compensations in the push-ups for weak lats or weak upper back are elbows caving in, so elbows coming in towards the ribs, or elbows pushing out to a 90-degree angle. Sound familiar? You know, those are kind of the two things that you see people doing on bikes. The elbows caving in was a compensation for people's weak upper back. And I'm not picking on the ladies here because my wife can bang out push-ups that would make most guys couldn't hang with that with her form. So this isn't picking on them, but it's just more common to see women without the upper back strength and the lat strength to stabilize their upper body properly when doing push-ups. And so again, if you think about the common compensations you've seen people doing, it's the elbows caved in towards the ribs, or the elbows pushed all the way out to 90 degrees, trying to create some leverage there. And so when you tell someone elbows out, really what you're doing is you're just pushing them from one compensation into another, although it does look more pro. So, you know, I've heard this before where it's like, well, you know, at least you'll look like you know what you're doing. It's like, man, I want to know what I know what I'm doing. You know what I'm doing, not just look like I know what I'm doing. But just pushing your elbows out, and we see this all the time. I call it the scarecrow posture. It's a freaking epidemic on the trails these days, where people are riding around looking like scarecrows. Their elbows are all the way out to the side, and they look like you can just pick them up and put them on a freaking board, and they can hang there as a scarecrow. You know, they're riding out there with the scarecrow posture, and it's actually another compensation for weak, disengaged lats and upper back. So elbows too far out can also mess with your counter pressure when cornering. You are strongest and most stable when your elbows are lined up with your hands. Basically, you want straight wrists, straight-ish wrists. Your wrists aren't going to be perfectly straight in the handlebars. There's going to be a slight bend, but we want them as lined up and as straight as possible. That's going to be the most efficient, effective way to apply force into the handlebars. Your hands need to also be at the correct angle when they apply counter pressure into the handlebars. So I put this little video together this morning. We're going to watch it real quick to kind of show you what I'm talking about. All right, so real quick, I'm going to go over how your hand and elbow position affect your ability to apply pressure into the handlebars, which affects your ability to corner. So we know we're not just turning the handlebars, we're wanting to apply counter pressure to the inside arm. That gets the bike to lean for us in a balanced way. But the thing is, our elbow position plays a very important role in how efficiently we're able to apply that pressure. We want to have a straight line right there, meaning I want my wrist as straight as possible. So if my elbows come too far in, one of the things that's happening is my wrist is bending. So now I'm not as strong and stable and as efficient as I can be with applying pressure into the handlebars. But telling someone to go from here to elbows out, you'll see I've got a bend in my wrist again here. So I also don't have the most efficient line that I could. Now I could change this, but now you'll see that when I push into the handlebars, I'm actually pushing down, I'm not pushing forward. And so this completely changes how I'm able to apply pressure into the handlebars. So for me to have my hand in the right position to effectively and efficiently apply pressure into the handlebars, I need my elbow somewhere in between them. And so again, I'm looking for that, you know, the upper back tension and the ability to effectively apply pressure into the handlebars, not just putting my elbow somewhere. So going from here all the way out to here is not fixing the problem and actually just pushing us from one compensation to another. So getting those elbows in the right position will really help you be able to put pressure on the handlebars and steer better. All right, so I am hoping that all this is coming through on the webinar, because if it is, it's going to be pretty cool. And but anyways, hopefully that explains what I'm talking about there. So elbow position is very important with that as well. So do a no-mo push-up and take note of the upper back tension and feel in your elbow position. And that will basically tell you what your upper back position and feel should be and where your elbow position should be. So some people are probably going, what the hell is a no-mo push-up? Well, funny you should ask. Let me show you. This is it right here. So you're basically doing a push-up. You come down, extend your arms out, come back, and push up. So I'll play this again real quick. You'll notice that a couple things. So my hands are underneath my armpits. Can't put hands on her face. You know, got to be in line with the armpits there. You see how my upper back, I mean, you can just see the tension in my upper back here, and you'll see my elbow position as well. And those are basically what you want to have happening on the bike. Well, actually, you saw how I had to shift my elbow position a little bit there to be able to effectively drive into the ground. So the reason for that is because without momentum, like I call it the no-mo push-up because there's no momentum there. Without momentum, and the bounce at the bottom, you have to rely on authentic stability. Now, if it is most stable off of the bike, it's also the most stable on the bike. So proper elbow position is going to set you up for good palm pressure on the handlebars, which leads me to my second myth. Before I jump into that, just to reiterate this idea of finding what is strongest, what's most balanced off of the bike, and then how do we apply that to the bike is just a reoccurring theme. So when you do your push-ups, you would not put your elbows out in the scarecrow position. So that is not where they should be when you're on your bike. So, using the gym to help fix the problem. So again, if you don't have the upper back strength, you don't have the upper back stability, then you need to have a strategy to fix that so that you can actually be able to apply the proper movement and technique to the bike instead of just working on compensations or trying to make yourself look like you know what you're doing, but not actually understanding how your body's supposed to be set up to react properly to the trail. So second myth is light hands and heavy feet. And first of all, what are light hands? Again, like, what are we talking about here? We got to, kind of define some things. It's often taught as ghost fingers, which is something taken from motorcycle skills training camps, or something similar, where you almost try to have the handlebars float in your hands, and you've got, no weight, almost no pressure on the handlebars. And, that's not exactly, that works well on a moto, but that's not what we want on the bike. Now what do we not want? Like, kind of, where's this light hands come from? Because again, there's been problems, right? Like, elbows out came from people having their elbows in. Like, back in the day, we had narrow handlebars. The common compensation was going to be to let your elbows come in towards the ribs. And so elbows out came from that problem. People trying to figure out, well, how do I fix what's going on here, and not understanding it's the upper back. Well, I'm just going to coach them into elbows out. Same thing here with light hands. Like, where did light hands come from? Like, why did this need to come into the skills coaching stuff? Now, what you don't want is a death grip on the handlebars, or to be using your handlebars for support. And this is where the whole light hands thing, for the most part, came from. Is a lot of riders, especially new riders, have just this constant death grip on the handlebars. They're gripping the bars as tight as they can, and or both, they're leaning into the handlebars. And this, you'll see this with bent wrists and a lot. And so they'll lean into the handlebars, trying to use them for support instead of using their core to hold themselves up, especially when they're sitting down to pedal. So you don't want that. So you don't want a death grip, and you don't want to just be leaning into the handlebars, using them for support. So, that's where the light hands advice started to come from. Again, also from motorcycle skills training camps. But don't you need some weight on the front end to steer, brake, and corner effectively? Like, this is kind of the elephant in the room, where it's like, we're talking to people about, hey, your front brake's the strongest brake, so you need some weight on it. But light hands, you need to be able to put counter pressure into the handlebars to steer, but light hands. Like standing up, I'll touch on that here in a second. It's like, you can't stand up and maintain light hands. So there's more to it. There's something else going on than just light hands and heavy feet. So the real problem is with the word weight, because this is how we generally talk about it. We're talking about how much weight do you have. And again, this goes back to the problem of people leaning into the handlebars, and they're just putting weight on the handlebars. Well, we don't want that, right? So, if we're just talking weight, yeah, we want light hands. We don't want a lot of weight on the handlebars. But the problem is with the word weight. A much better word would be pressure. Weight is dead, right? That's what I call, like, dead weight. Pressure is alive. And it can take a little time to understand what this means. There's probably some people who listen to this going, what the frick are you talking about, man? So again, going back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, again, it's just really good to get different perspectives on things, because it helps you understand your sport better. But in Jiu-Jitsu, when I started out, they would always talk about pressure from the top, using pressure from the top, and didn't really understand what that meant. But in Jiu-Jitsu, pressure is what a 140-pound female brown belt, uses to pin you and crush you. Basically, me. We had a girl here a few weeks ago who just, it was just intense, man. She gets on top of you, and it's just, crushing, and it's crazy. And she only weighs 140 pounds, but she understands how to apply pressure. So with pressure, you can increase it and decrease it at will. You can react to what's happening with you. Weight's just dead. Weight's what like a 200-pound white belt uses to try and pin you, but it's easy to move around. Like when someone's got weight on you, you just gotta like, you know, move out a little bit and like fall into the hole that you just created, because it's just weight. And so understanding that difference between weight and pressure, and you need to understand how to effectively use pressure at your hands and your feet. And that's what we really need to be able to teach people when it comes to, you know, proper body position and what they're looking for. So this means that you want most of your weight / pressure. You know, the problem is the terms can be, they're not the same, but obviously you have to have some weight in order to apply pressure. And so they are related, but they're not the same thing. It's just so important to understand that. So you want to have most of your weight / pressure on the feet, but you also need some on the handlebars. And that ratio can change. And again, this is the thing that I see this advice really screwing up a lot of people, is they are deathly afraid to put any weight, anything on their handlebars, because it's all your weight needs to be on your feet, as little weight as possible on your hands, and not understanding how to apply pressure effectively and use that. And so there are times that you need to shift pressure to the hands, like standing pedaling and cornering. I mean, seriously, how can you stand up the pedal or counter steer, you know, use counter pressure, whatever term you want to use, without some sort of weight and or pressure on the handlebars? You can't do it. So like I said, it's obvious that it's an incomplete a cue at best. So pressure on the palms also activates the nerve bundle in the palm that the brain uses for feedback to activate the long head of the triceps, which crosses, the long head of the triceps crosses and helps stabilizes the shoulder joint. So you can see right here, this line right here is where your handlebar should be and where you should feel the pressure from your handlebars. And right here is that little pressure point that I'm talking about. And so there's a nerve bundle there that when you have pressure on it, literally helps activate the tricep and stabilize the shoulder. So again, if you have light hands and you're not putting any weight or any pressure on your palms, then you're missing out on this pressure point and your body's ability to help to stabilize the shoulder and the upper back. So you're literally handicapping yourself if you don't put any sort of weight or pressure on your hands. Again, we're not talking about excessive. We're just talking about you know, most of it's on the feet, but we need some pressure on the hands. And so so anyway, so this is a good kind of just, you know, where we want the handlebars and just kind of an idea, something else that will help us. So a better way to teach people would be to teach them where they should feel the pressure on their palms and what it should feel like, so that they can focus on that pressure. And that pressure is what's gonna give them the feedback on if they're too far forward or too far back. So focusing on palm pressure also helps alert riders to unbalanced positions, right? If you get too much pressure on your palms, then you know that you have more weight on the front end. But if you start to feel that pressure go away, or actually start to feel pressure on the fingers, well, that means that your weight is shifted to the back. Now, how quickly can you think about that? Like your pressure, that's just, it's an instinctive thing. Your brain can go there and very quickly figure out, you know, does that feel like it should? Yes, no, fix it. You know, that's what I was talking about. Like when you're talking about movement skills, you're tapping into your body's natural ways of moving. This stuff happens very quickly. So, you know, trying to get someone to think about, you know, ghost fingers and try and keep all of their weight on their feet requires thinking. That's a different thing than like, what should my palm pressure feel like? And then, you know, modulate it depending upon the situation. It also will, I didn't write this down, but your palm pressure will also relate to your elbow position. So if your elbows are in the right position, you're going to be able to apply good, consistent pressure all the way across your palm from one edge to the next. But if your elbows are in, you'll notice that the outside edge of your palm starts to peel up and you start to lose pressure there. And conversely, on the opposite end, if your elbows are too far out, you'll start to peel up. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it's the other way. So if your elbows go in, it starts to peel up the inside. So your thumb, like by your thumb, will start to unweight and peel up. And if you push your elbows too far out, the outside edge of your palm will start to unweight and peel up. So your palm pressure will also give you feedback on your elbow position. And when it's in the right position, then you can very consistently and effectively apply that consistent pressure across your palm there, which is what you want. So the goal is to keep your palm pressure relatively constant as you ride. and use it to help you pilot the bike and react to the trail. So again, like, you know, this is kind of, when you understand the palm pressure and how it helps you in keeping the weight on the front end. Well, now think about how someone may have, you know, some of us have seen people taught how to go down steep stuff, right? Like, it's just, well, shift the weight back, right? We hear it all the time, like, get your butt on the tire, all the way back. And, you know, besides the fact that you're getting your arms straight, which means that you have no ability to react to the trail effectively, what happens with your palm pressure? All the pressure goes to your fingers. And now you got all the weight on the back, you got no weight on the front end. And so now your front brake doesn't work, you can't steer as effectively. And wow, that's a really great place to be, where your front brake isn't working as good and you can't steer as effectively, as like coming down something steep, right? But if we're focused on keeping your weight constant, so as you start to go steeper, now if I don't shift my weight back, I'm going to increase the pressure on my palms. That's my alert, like, whoa, 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 I'm getting too much weight on the front end. Now I got to shift back, but I want to shift back to get to where I know my palm pressure wants to be. That's what alerts me to a good balanced body position on the bike. And if I feel it's starting to get too far back and go into my fingers, I know I'm going too far. I'm going to start losing my ability to brake and steer effectively. So, anyways, that palm pressure and understanding how to just keep it constant and move your body as the terrain and stuff, you know, changes is in my mind, a better way to kind of get people to think about it. So the last thing, sorry, I forgot I had a third point here. Pressure on the feet also can be used to help ground the feet or make the feet and the rear end light as needed. So understanding it's not just weight, which is dead, but it's pressure at the feet. And this is another thing, like, if you don't understand how to apply pressure with your feet, then flat pedals are a mystery, right? Because you don't understand how to ground yourself and apply pressure as needed to keep your feet in place. And that grounding and application of pressure takes some time and skill to develop. But you know, going through a, you know, you got to ground your feet going through something to keep them on, or, you know, you're trying to go up a ledge, or you know, your rear end is going to clip something hard and you got to decrease the pressure, make the rear end light, and increase the pressure on the hands. You know, all of those things, it's a dynamic thing that's happening, that pressure between your hands and your feet. And that's really what mountain biking boils down to, is how you're applying pressure into your hands and feet, because those are your main contact points with the bike. So, but like I learned in jiu-jitsu, learning how to create and use pressure is a skill, and it takes some time. So this means that you need to use flat pedals to help you develop the skill and the feel of foot pressure. You cannot develop it on clipless pedals. You need to learn how to do it raw, and then you can use the clipless pedals. You know, I've talked about this before. It's not one's better than the other. It's just flats are like training raw. They really force you to develop your skills and stuff and feel for stuff. And then you can use the clipless pedals to help enhance that for, you know, high performance situations. But you need to use flats to help you develop the skill. And this is the #1 reason, like, people new to mountain biking, they come in and their feet are bouncing all over the place. They don't understand how to create and use pressure. And because as an industry, we generally don't encourage people to, you know, develop that skill, then, well, how do we fix it? Well, strap your feet on the pedals. That'll take care of it. It's not the same thing. Developing the feel for the pressure, it helps you pilot your bike better. So, you know, you definitely want to develop that. And then knowing how to use foot and palm pressure effectively is also one of the keys to the last myth, which is lean the bike and knock your body to corner. And this is a big one. This is one that I've actually got a pretty popular video where I tell people to do this. Like, that's the thing. Like, all of these things I have told people to do. All of these things I have done myself. The problem is I kept running into things that just didn't add up. You know, it just didn't, you know, like I said, like with the light hands, heavy feet. Well, I need pressure on my palms to steer and brake effectively. So what's going on there? There's something's not grooving between what I'm feeling on the trail and what I know is happening on the trail, and the cues that we're giving people to have it happen. And so, anyways, and this is a big one with lean the bike and knock your body to corner. And here's the first problem with this advice. This works well on a motorcycle where you have an engine and it's bigger and stronger than you are, right? Like, it doesn't work well on the trail where you're bigger and stronger on the bike. And the problem is you ride a motorcycle, you have to drive a mountain bike. You have to be in front of the bike going through the corner, and the bike's following you. With a motorcycle, it's a different thing. The motorcycle, you are riding it. So, you know, it's going through the corner and it's carrying you along with it. That's not what's happening on your mountain bike. You need to be driving yourself through the corner, and the bike is following you for all intents and purposes. So other examples of this are things like surfing, skiing, snowboarding, skateboarding, skating. But skiing's probably a big one. If any of you guys have skied and you think about it, like, oh yeah, like I have to throw myself into the turn and my skis follow me into the turn. I'm not turning my skis and following my skis. Same thing with the surfboard. The surfer leads the turn. He starts turning and the board follows. Snowboarding, skateboarding, all of these things. You know, I was thinking about this. Tell a skateboarder, like, oh yeah, you steer by you know, leaning your board and not your body. He'd freaking look at you like you're retarded. He's like, are you kidding me? I have to lean my body. I have to lean because that's how you turn. That's how you get your skateboard turn. Your skateboard lean is a reflection of your body lean. And that type of turning technique is what we need on the mountain bike, because again, it's not a motorcycle, right? Like, we're not riding it through the corner. We're trying to drive it through the corner. So problem number 2, and this is a huge one. Most people have no ability to corkscrew their hips and upper body. And most people are going like, what are you talking about? Which is the problem, right? Like, corkscrew is one of those movements that we just don't work on. It doesn't fit into a neat little box in our fitness culture. And so we don't work on it very much. So, but it's the movement behind the bent press, the windmill, like the kettlebell windmill, although you can use pretty much any implement with it. So just use, say, the windmill, and other old-time strongman lifts. Again, if you look at like old-time strongman, their books, man, they were doing stuff like this all the time. It was a big, you know, this movement was a big part of what they consider to be strength. And it requires the ability to lean the shoulders and upper body while staying balanced over the feet. And again, you've got like the bent press. Man, I forget what the record is. I mean, we're talking like guys getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds over their head with one hand. And you know, I'll show you I have a video I'm going to show you of the kettlebell or the stick windmill, and so you can kind of see what the movement looks like. But but you know, you're not going to lift hundreds of pounds overhead in an unbalanced manner. And so if they can lean their bodies over and stay balanced with hundreds of pounds over their head, we can do it without the weight. We can do it on our bikes. When you can't corkscrew properly, then you'll throw off your balance as you lean. This is the problem. If your hips don't work properly, you don't understand how to corkscrew properly, then as you come down, you'll start to lean over, which will throw your balance off of your base of support. Now, what does this have to do with the bike? On the bike, we see this as too much weight. When someone leans their body, this results in too much weight on the inside of the corner, and the rider smashing into the ground. We've all had this experience where you've just gotten too much weight to the inside. All of a sudden, the bottom just falls out from underneath you, and you're just blam into the ground hard. And it's like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? And what happened is you got too much weight to the inside. You leaned in an unbalanced manner. Now, after seeing and experiencing this, it seems like don't lean the body would make sense. Like, well, shit, if I don't lean my body, then I don't have to worry about getting too much weight to the inside. I don't have to worry about crashing my bike. And so, but this is just teaching a compensation. It's not teaching the actual skill of cornering. The actual skill of cornering relies on your ability to lean in a balanced manner and corkscrew your hips in order to drive the movement. So you need to fix the problem first, and then you can lean your body in a balanced way, which leads to another way of looking at cornering. Like, honestly, if you can't perform a stick windmill, which is the next exercise that I'm about to show you here in a second, if you can't perform the stick windmill, I guarantee you that there are some sort of compensations that are happening with your cornering that you're doing. You're somewhere you're compensating for your inability to corkscrew properly. And so if you can't move properly, it changes your paradigm, right? Like, it's like, how do you do that? How do you lean without crashing your bike? You know, how do you lean your body? Well, it's like, can you move the right way first? No. Well, go do that. Go figure out how to do that, and then come back to me, and you'll have a different perspective, and you'll be able to understand what I'm talking about better. But so here's how all this kind of came about, because this is funny. Like, I did not want this to be true. right? Like my father-in-law is an old surfer, and he told me that one day we were talking on the phone, and he's like, everybody, you know, says you turn your surfboard with your hips, but you don't turn with your hips. And I got kind of curious. I was really interested to see where this is going because, you know, mountain biking, we all talk about, well, you turn with your hips, you corner with your hips. He says, no, man, your shoulders do it. You turn your shoulders, and your shoulders turn your hips, and then the hips turn the board. And I was thinking about it. I was like, holy crap, you know, if you think about surfing videos and you'll see the guys doing the hard cutbacks, and you'll see those shoulders whip, and then the hips whip, and then finally the board whips. And I'm like, wow, okay, I can see that. So I went out on a ride that day to check it out. I tried it on the trail, and I could not believe it worked. I mean, honestly, because I've been telling people for years, it's in the hips, it's in the hips, twist the hips, twist the hips. You know, the hips are how you corner. And I go out there and I start focusing on my shoulders and letting my shoulders, you know, bank to turn my hips, and it just changed everything. It was like, holy crap, this is so much easier to do. It's so much more instinctive. It feels so much more balanced because I'm not fighting my body by trying to move wrong. Like I realized, like the way your body works is you work from one end to the other. So, you know, you start with the shoulders turn the hips, and the hips turn the feet, and the feet put the pressure into the pedals. You know, if you're throwing or punching, the feet, you know, start with, yeah, you know, where do I start? The feet start it and then go through the hips, and then they go through the shoulders, right? Like you don't throw with your arm, you know, you're throwing with your feet, you're throwing with your legs. And so that idea of trying to start in the middle, like cornering with your hips, actually goes against how our body's set up to move, because we're not designed to move from the middle out. We're designed to move from one end to the next. So if we want to end with our feet, then we need the shoulders to turn, which turns our hips, which then puts the pressure into our feet. So just like playing airplane as a kid, you want to bank your shoulders into a turn. And this sets up the rest of your body to turn the bike. When I go to the video, I'll show you guys, like it's really kind of uncanny how when you bank your shoulders, it kicks your hips out to the side, and it starts to set your counter pressure. Your inside hand automatically starts pushing forward and applying more pressure simply by banking that inside shoulder. So it sets up, and when you bank that inside shoulder, it helps you look through the corner. So just doing that one thing sets up your body to do all of these other things that we're taught, or, you know, so like, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3. Banking the shoulders, like I said, also initiates the counter pressure on the inside hand, and it also initiates the carving pressure on the outside foot. Now, this is just a big by the way thing. You know, again, I could do a whole other thing on cornering, but this is another myth, and just drop the outside foot. It's absolute rubbish. You don't drop the outside foot. You increase the pressure on the outside pedal to set your edge and allow your hips to corkscrew properly. Now, the sharper the corner, the more you're going to corkscrew, and the more pressure you're going to put into that pedal, the more pressure you're going to need for your edge, and, you know, the more your hips are going to shift, and that's going to result in the outside pedal dropping in relation to those factors. So your pedal drop should be in relation to your corkscrew, not the other way around. You don't just, you know, drop the outside foot, because that messes up your balance. You're not going to be able to move in a balanced way if you just drop the outside foot instead of letting that outside foot react to the pressure and the edge that you're putting into it depending upon the corner. So another, by the way, since starting to do this, I now make airplane noises on the trail instead of motorcycle noises. It really helps, man. You're going through corners just like, and you feel like you're a kid again, and you're just, you know, it's crazy. You're just, you know, banking your shoulders, and it's good stuff. So here's the thing: leaning the bike itself relies on manual inputs into the bike, but leaning your body relies on your body's balance points to drive the bike through the corner. So that's the big difference: manual inputs versus, you know, your own balance points. So if you lean the bike, you then have to react to the bike. You've changed the bike's balance point. So then you have to react to maintain balance. Whereas if you move yourself and your balance points first, well, you're staying balanced, and you're able to let the bike react to your balance points. So it's just, you know, who's leading the dance? Is the bike leading the dance? Because you're gonna have to react to the bike's change in balance. Right? So if you lean the bike over, you've changed the balance points. Now you have to react to that, versus you leaning yourself and changing your balance points and then letting the bike react to that. So again, someone's going to have to react to somebody. And in our case, being the bigger, stronger factor in it, we want to be driving the bike, right? And so that means that we want to be the driving it through the corner, and the bike's reacting to us. So focusing on leaning the bike and not the body also keeps the shoulders relatively level and dead. And this is the number one thing I'm starting to look for when people understand, to see if they really understand cornering technique, is what's happening with their shoulders. And if their shoulders are dead and they're not banking and moving, then I know that they're not really getting as much out of their cornering technique as they could. This also relies on memorized manual inputs. And like we talked about earlier, these are slow. Step 1, step 2, step 3 is slow. Our brains can't process them fast enough. No matter how much we drill them, no matter how much we try, we'll never be able to process step 1, step 2, step 3 as fast as we can, focusing on feel and our own balance points. This method also doesn't turn the bike as effectively. So I got this little video here. I'll show you, that I took this in my driveway, but this is just manual inputs, right? So I drop the outside foot and I straighten the inside arm and apply the counter pressure, and it gets the bike to go around for sure. Watch that again. So you'll see I'm looking, I look, drop, counter pressure, your counter steer. So, most people would go, that wasn't too bad, bro. What, so what's the, what was wrong with that? Well, here's the thing. Banking the inside shoulder sets up the balance points and pressure points needed to drive the bike and help you react to the trail. So leaning is unbalanced. You don't want to lean. You want to bank, you want to corkscrew. Like it's a different thing. Like leaning indicates your shoulders are leaning off of your center of balance, your center of gravity, your base of support. Sorry, it's all tied together. But basically, you're leaning off of your base of support. Banking or corkscrewing indicates that you're staying over your base of support. You're moving, your body's leaning and moving, but it's doing it in a balanced way. And really, balance is the goal. That's what we want. That's why if you can't corkscrew, well, lean the bike and not the body makes sense, because that's more balanced. But once you can corkscrew and bank in a balanced manner, now you can do it. You don't have to kind of rely on a compensation. And you can actually do the actual technique. It also turns the bike much more effectively. So here's another video of me doing this. And you'll see I don't do anything. I don't straighten the inside arm or drop the outside foot at all. I just bang my shoulders. That's it. And look how much tighter the turn was. Everything. I didn't do a single manual input. And you'll see it kind of happen though. My outside foot drops a little bit and the inside arm straightens a little bit. But I didn't do a single one of those manual inputs. And my bike turned much more smoothly and in a much tighter arc than it did when I was just relying on the manual inputs. So again, just kind of showing like once you know how to bank and lean, it changes things a little bit. So to help with this, a steady diet of stick windmills is a must for every mountain biker. And the stick windmill literally teaches you how to corkscrew and not lean, and it improves your hip and T-spine mobility. So another video here. I gotta remember to kill the volume on this. So let me get to the right point right about here. All right, so this is the stick windmill. I got a stick on my back. I got my feet staggered. Now you'll see what's happening. You'll see how my shoulders are staying over my, like within my little box here. This box of my feet is my base of support. I'm staying within that box. My hips shift back. The shoulders over my base of support, and then I come back and you see how they stay over my base of support. And so, yeah, I'm talking about how this applies to the hip hinge, right? You want your shoulders to stay over your base of support, not just lean forward and tip forward. So see how those shoulders are staying. Now, a lot of people who struggle with this, they're not going to be able to get all the way down. They're going to have too much weight on this front foot, and what you'll see is their shoulders will be, in front of this foot here. And so what they've done is they've leaned, and their balance is shifted. One of the things with the stick windmill you want to do is not feel your weight shifting as you're doing. That's an indication of unbalance. So as you're coming down into the stick windmill, if you feel your weight shifting to the front or back, you're leaning. You're doing it in an unbalanced manner. If you're balanced, you should be able to do that movement without any weight shift. And once you can do that, now you can do that on the bike. You can start to learn to apply that to the bike, and bank your shoulders to initiate things, which is going to kick the hips out. But now you understand how to do it in a balanced manner. You're not leaning to the inside of the corner. You're staying over your base of support and staying balanced while you're doing it. So, oh, wait a minute here. Shoots. I just hit the wrong button. So give me a quick second to get back to where I was. We're right near the end. And where are we? Here we are. Stick windmill. So that's a lot of info. So here's a recap of the main points. Gonna wrap up here, and then I'll open it up to some Q&A when I do. So number one, understanding movement and how it applies to the bike is the key to good skills training. And that's it. Like, how does the human body move? Now, how do we apply that to the bike? If it's strongest and most stable off of the bike, then it is strongest and most stable on the bike. The rules of movement don't change just because you throw your leg over a bike. That's one of the cycling industry's biggest lies they got us to believe, was that cycling's different, right? We hear that all the time. Well, riding a bike is different. No, it's not different. It's just a different application of the same movement principles. You don't, so I know I use the word different, but you know what I mean? It's not like everything's different. It's the same principles being applied in a different way, but the principles maintain. So we also need to keep in mind that most people have movement dysfunctions. You can't ignore this. You can't ignore that most people come into mountain biking with movement dysfunctions. And if we're not helping people understand these dysfunctions and having a strategy to help them address them, then we're not really doing them the service that we could or should. So this is a big one, man, and I'm touching on this again. I talked about this at the beginning. You can't teach skill in the presence of dysfunction. You're only teaching compensation. This is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of skills coaches because they don't have people long enough to really help them with the dysfunctions. And that is just how our industry and how things have gotten set up. People expect to show up for 1, 2, maybe 3 days and walk away with the secrets of how to become a world champion mountain biker. And so, you know, the expectations are unrealistic, and the stuff that we're doing with people tends to be more to help them feel like they're walking away and got good value, rather than really holding the mirror up and making them take a good hard look at themselves and saying, look, this is what's holding you back. You got no upper back strength. You've got no hip mobility. You've got no, you know, whatever it may be. You need to fix it, or else all this stuff that I'm telling you right now will never work. And so when I do my my primal skills training camps, I have that speech at the beginning of every single one. I tell people, look, you're going to hit a point where it's not your skill that's holding you back. You just have a dysfunction. And yes, it's going to be frustrating, but it's going to happen. And at that point, I'm just going to tell you, look, you need to just relax, stop, you know, trying it, because it's not the skill, it's the dysfunction that's holding you back. But help people understand that. So how does this apply to the things that we were talking about? Don't focus on elbow position. Focus on keeping tension in the upper back to help stabilize the upper body. Also, focus on palm pressure, right? Like I was talking about, when you have your elbows in the right position, you're going to be able to feel a good, consistent line of pressure across your palm. Don't focus on weight on the hands and feet. Focus on the right pressure in the right places, and I should add to that, at the right times. So understanding how these dynamic weight shifts and pressure shifts from the front to the back happen is the key, one of the keys to being an effective mountain biker. And finally, learn how to corkscrew, and then focus on banking the shoulders to drive your cornering. More like surfing or skiing, less like moto, right? So, and this is a hard one. This is because people want to learn how to corner. It's like, honestly, you probably need to spend several weeks, if not, you know, months, working on your corkscrew ability before you can even start to have, your body can even start to unlock how to corner properly. But again, this isn't what people want to hear. They just want to hear the 3 secrets to cornering and go out there and step 1, step 2, step 3, and then they just practice it. And you know, and they get a little bit better, and they're happy, and everything's great. But you know, that's not what's really going to help them in the long term. We need to help them understand how to move better, and then we can help them understand how to apply that better movement to the bike. So in conclusion, one of my favorite quotes of all time, and this isn't the actual quote, it's a little paraphrasing of it from my boy Bruce Lee: absorb what is useful, discard what isn't. So that's pretty much my advice for you from this presentation is you may not agree with all of it, and that's fine. I just encourage you to absorb what's useful and discard what isn't. So the two things I want to leave you with: one, be a smart consumer. You need to educate yourself on some basic movement principles, and then run skills training advice through that filter. So educating yourself as a consumer is a big one. Now, here's my filter. What is the strongest and most stable off the bike, or what is strongest and most stable off the bike is strongest and most stable on the bike. And if a piece of advice violates a movement principle, it isn't valid. So that's just my own personal filter that I run stuff through. I'm always thinking, okay, what's strongest and most stable off of the bike? Now, how can I apply that to the technique in these positions on the bike? And if I hear a piece of skills training advice or just kind of bike riding advice in general, and I know that it violates a movement principle, then I know that that piece of advice isn't valid, or at least it's incomplete. So that's just my filter there. So that's it. You can learn more at bikejames.com. I've got a bunch of free resources and stuff for you to check out there. I've got some great programs. Actually, next week I'm starting something new, which is my new on-demand website where you can get access to all of my programs, plus a bunch of really cool exclusive stuff for just 19 bucks a month. My skills training stuff and whatnot. But that'll be I'll be launching that at the beginning of what is April, May. So yeah, in a week. So if you're watching the replay of this, that it'll probably be going on there. You can go over to bikejames.com and check it out. If you're watching the live one, then I'll be letting you know more about it next week. But anyways, that's it for the presentation, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here and go back to the live feed. All right, so here we go. Got some stuff going on here. And oh no. Yeah, the technology. All right, shoot, sound breaking up. Shoots. Man, I apologize if I got to redo it. I'll redo it. It's a little frustrating when you're kind of at the mercy of technology a little bit with this. I've got it all hooked up and did everything I was supposed to do to try to keep the sound going good, but yeah. Well, all right. Well, I apologize for that. So just spent a good hour going over a bunch of stuff, and I don't know what you guys got, what you didn't. I'll try and see what I can do to do so. All right. All right. Well, unfortunately, it looks like most of the stuff was just letting me know that we had a thing. So, all right. So, if we got any questions here coming in, saying we got most of it. So, all right. All right. Well, I guess that's going to be, I don't really see a whole lot of questions or anything like that. I guess, probably just because the sound was bad. I really apologize for that there. Let's see. The rule of balance change depending upon the looseness of terrain, getting weight over the outside corner. So Grant's got a question. Does the rules of balance change depending upon the looseness of terrain? Getting the weight over the outside corner. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about terrain, traction and stuff obviously plays a role in where your balance and your weight is going to be on your bike. And it's also going to play a role in the lean of the bike with the when you're cornering. So in that video that I showed you guys, where I was just doing my banking and I didn't do any manual inputs at all, well, that works really well when you're in a parking lot with infinite traction, right? But if I was on a trail with loose, dirt and rocks and stuff like that, I would have to start to apply those counter, the pressure into my foot, the pressure in the inside palm. The pressure on the inside palm is keeping the pressure on the front wheel. The pressure on the outside foot is keeping the pressure on the back wheel. And so the more pressure I put into those things, the more I'm setting my edge. And so that's why you'll see guys you know, flat out, right? Like they got the foot all the way down, and it's like usually like a really loose, really fast, really tight corner where they're having to max out the lean of the bike to compensate for the looseness of the terrain, and you know, their body is obviously playing into that as well. But yeah, your balance points, your corkscrewing is going to be pretty similar. The thing that's really going to change is how busy are you going to need to get with the manual inputs into the bike. So you still need to do the manual inputs into the bike, right? But you're doing them in reaction to what's happening. So I'm setting things up with my bank, and then I'm able to, you know, straighten the inside out more if I need to, you know, apply more pressure and drop the outside foot more if I need to. But I'm able to basically, once I get set, you know, start be able to react to the trail and stuff like that. So yeah, that'll definitely play a role. So so good. Hope that answers your question, Grant. How does one so small smash corners? I'm not sure what that question exactly means, BC Mike, but I mean, honestly, pressure, because people that know how to smash corners, they just know how to apply pressure. I talked about it. It's applying pressure in your hands and feet, which effectively applies pressure into the bike at the right time. So when you're coming through a corner and you want to like smash through there, you're setting yourself up and you're timing like whack, right when you're gonna like apply that pressure into your hands and feet, especially your feet, to like, you know, set the edge and smash into the corner. So it's pressure, you know, that's how you know, smaller riders are able to like smash corners real effectively, as they know how to use pressure effectively. So hope that answers your question there. See, John's got a question. Starting to turn with the shoulders, does that mean left shoulder comes forward, hips follow, and bikes follows when starting a right hand turn? Yeah, exactly. So the let me see here, I'll show you. So the idea is if I'm going into, what you asked me about, we'll just say we're going into a left-hand corner, right? So for me, this is my left-hand corner. This also plays into why you need to be able to ride switch foot, because when you have your inside foot forward and your outside foot back, it sets up your hips to be able to corkscrew more effectively, and it also allows you to set your edge and apply pressure more effectively into the back wheel, versus like trying to go in here. Now I can't really like set my edge and apply pressure into the back wheels effectively. So I would set myself up so my left foot was forward, and if I'm going into this left-hand turn, then my left shoulder is going to bank into it. You'll see as soon as I do, right, I bank this shoulder in, my hips move. I didn't move my hips, right? Now I can move my hips and try and do this and see my shoulders are dead. And this is what I was talking about with the dead shoulders thing, because you want to have your hips set up, you know, your shoulders should set the hips. So as I bank, and again, you'll see what you don't want is this. This is leaning, right? And that's what people do on the trail. They'll lean their body on the inside and crash. What you want to be able to do is lean. You see how my shoulders are staying over my base of support, my hips are kicking out. So, you know, this hand goes forward, these hips kick out, I start weighting this outside foot. So all that stuff, like step 1, step 2, step 3, automatically happens when you bank your inside shoulder and you're able to do it in a balanced manner, you know, with the corkscrewing action that I was talking about. So the so yeah, whatever, you know, whatever corner you're going into, that inside corner is gonna you're gonna bank that inside shoulder. And like I said, that banking the inside shoulder kicks the hips out. But again, if you don't have the lateral stability, right? Because if you have a disconnect here, so if I, you know, bank, but my hips don't move to compensate for it, well, now I'm unbalanced again. And so, but once you're able to do it in a balanced way, well, now you can get on the bike and apply it much more effectively. So, so hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, bank the inside shoulder, then the hips will follow, and then applying pressure in the feet, and the bike follows. So yes. See, left hand shoulder comes forward. Yeah, I wouldn't really think about like forward. Part of your question was when starting the turn, does that mean the left shoulder comes forward? Yeah, I wouldn't think about the opposite shoulder, right? So if I'm turning into a right hand turn, I'm gonna bank this shoulder, and this shoulder will follow. I would not try to drive the movement from the top, because that's an unbalanced way to move. But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. So Davo's got or wait a minute, hold on, Brett's got one. Most of the guys I've started riding with tend to have their saddles tilted nose downward. Why is this? Is this for stability? I don't know. I suppose it has something to do with climbing, and this myth, another myth, that you need to have your butt on the seat in order to apply traction, in order to get traction. It has nothing to do with it. You know, your butt on the seat, your seat's pointing this way, so when you weight on the seat's going this way, not down into the wheel. But anyways, so that maybe like tilting it down, because when you're climbing and you just got like the edge of your butt on the tip of your saddle, and you know, jamming your crotch down into it, which I just suggest stand up and pedal. Like, you know, just learn how to do it. It's completely possible. But and it's much easier on your groin, man, and not your groin, your freaking prostate, right? But my point is that forward tilted saddle probably has something to do with that, like just them trying to, like, you know, optimize that sitting on the tip of their saddle when they're climbing up steep stuff instead of just standing up. But that would just be my guess on it. So, all right, see, Davo's got a question here. At the bottom of a turn, we want our outside foot heel down, pressure applied, right? And could you address vision on the bike? Sure. So at the bottom of a turn, I'm going to assume we mean kind of at the end of a turn, we want our outside heel foot down. No, you don't want to drop the foot. And that's the thing that I was trying to say is, like, so if you've ever skied, right? So if the harder, so when you're skiing and you turn, if I'm doing a hard turn, then I really, you know, throw that foot down, right? But that's not all turns. Not all turns require that. If it's an easy turn, I may just go to like here, you know? So like telling a mountain biker to drop the outside foot and that's how you turn. It's like telling a skier to just slam that foot down, you know, and you know, get your feet at that 12 and 6 position, and that's how you turn on skis. And people would be like, you can kill people teaching you to turn like that. That's so unbalanced. That's not how it works. So it's the same idea. Like, your foot should only drop as far as it needs to accommodate the lean, your body, you know, the hips kicking out, and the pressure that you need to apply. So again, pressure's alive, right? This goes back to weight. Like, if I just drop my outside foot, that's just putting weight on my pedal, right? I'm just putting weight. Weight's dead. Pressure's alive. I can add more and take some off as I need to, and really, like, you know, so if it gets maybe there when it's relevant, then come out. So, you know, it should, there's no one place where your foot should end up when you're cornering. It should be in relation to the pressure that you're putting on that outside edge. And it all depends on the traction, how steep the corner is, or, you know, the attack angle of the corner and all that. So, you know, if you're on the road, I mean, you saw me in my driveway, right? Like, I did a full, you know, 90-degree turn or 180 and never dropped my outside foot at all. And so you don't have to. You know, it's more about your balance points pulling the bike through, and then all the lean and the pressure and all that stuff, like I was talking about, depends on you know, just how much pressure you need to put down to set your edges to maintain traction. And so it should be in reaction to the trail, not just like an automatic thing. And vision, you know, yeah, you need to be looking up. You know, I have my own, again, this is just my own kind of thoughts on this stuff. I do believe that this idea of, like, looking up and only using your periphery to pick out what's in front of you isn't always the best way to do it. I ride in places with very technical, very tight stuff, and I do a lot of the opposite, where I'm looking down and I'm using my periphery to pick out what's in front of me. Like, I mean, honestly, there's a reason that I aim a gun with my dead-on vision, and I'm not aiming a gun with my periphery vision, right? We have this, you know, there's almost kind of been this movement in the skills training world in some ways, to where we're like, our periphery vision is superior, actually. Like, you know, if we could just learn to tap into our peripheral vision, you know, all of our vision problems on the trail would be cured. And it's like, Well, no, it's not better. Like dead on vision's better. You have way better accuracy, you have way better judgment with stuff. And so I say it depends on the terrain, right? So if it's fast and there's not a lot of technical stuff, then you need to be looking up and using your periphery to scan what's in front of your wheel. But if you're in like slow techie stuff, or you're going, like, again, the situation will dictate. But like, again, I'm not staring at my front wheel. I'm looking ahead of me still, but it's more of like my vision, my focus is more in front of me, and the periphery scanning out there rather than me looking out there and using the periphery to scan here. So again, it's understanding how to use both. Like, when is the optimal time to use your dead on vision? Again, some people are like, they believe that, like, I can't look down, I have to use my periphery or else I'm using bad vision, and that's not necessarily true. But the other thing too is, I was going to point out with cornering, right? With dead shoulders, like, I can't turn my head as effectively as if I let my shoulders bank. So as soon as I'm fighting, trying to let my shoulders bank, which is lean, like that's what the lean is. Like when I say like lean your, like don't lean your body, like that basically what they're talking about is your shoulders, right? Like don't lean your shoulders. And so if I'm trying to kick my hips out and I'm fighting letting my shoulders bank and I'm trying to turn, like this goes against how my body moves. My head's not going to turn, right? But if I bank, it sets up me looking through the corner much more effectively and just naturally, right? So vision, counter pressure, hips kicking out, setting the pressure on your foot, the edge, all of these things happen automatically when you bank your inside shoulder. I'd rather just think about that. One thing gets me into position rather than me having to think step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, then, that's good for me. So hopefully that answers your question. Again, feel free to add some more if you want. So Mike is asking, is palm pressure applied more on the inner hand or outer hand during a turn? It's going to be the inner hand. I mean, you're definitely going to be applying more pressure because, again, we're creating an unbalanced situation, right? Like, so if I'm balanced, I'm going straight and I want to be balanced, I want equal pressure, because equal pressure is going to create balance. So I create unequal pressure, right? I'm going to push more on this hand. I'm not going to lose it, right? Like, I still want some pressure, but I'm not going to, yeah, you're definitely going to have more pressure on the inside hand. And, again, the thing too is like, pressure allows you to react, right? So the trail, if you're just like pushing or straighten your inside arm, it's like you don't have that ability to kind of react to the trail, to kind of, as you're feeling it and stuff. So remember, pressure lets you react, weight's just dead. But yeah, you're definitely going to increase the pressure on that inside hand to when you're steering, for sure. So let's see, Michael's got a question here. How can I apply the pressure principle to my new flat pedals? Feet are coming off on rocky climbs and drops. New to flat pedals. Man, honestly, it sounds kind of funny, but one of the best things that you can do is actually do kettlebell swings. And learning how to do kettlebell swings will really teach you how to ground. Like, as you get stronger and you're able to use heavier kettlebells, like I can take someone who is strong, right, but they don't have good foot pressure, they don't understand how to do that, and I hand them a like a heavy kettlebell, like something like 24, 28, 32 kilos, and tell them to do a swing, and they're going to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's not a strength issue, right? They're plenty strong to do it. They just don't understand how to create the pressure. They don't understand how to like pressure and ground their feet and move dynamically around that grounded, strong foot position. And that's literally what you're trying to do on your bike with flat pedals. And so kettlebell swings are a really effective way to learn how to apply pressure and stay grounded with your feet, especially doing it barefoot. Like, don't wear shoes. Like, let your feet, that's another thing too. Just, stepping back a little bit. Most people's feet are dead. You want to talk about a common dysfunction that we have in today's society. Most people's feet are just dead. I mean, and so if you're not doing some sort of barefoot training, just spending part of your time each day barefoot, walking around with nothing on your feet, barefoot, letting your feet actually just feel the ground. I mean, you have like as many nerve endings and stuff in your feet as you do in your hands. Like, they're just as important for your body's movement and feedback and everything as your hands are. And yet, we insult them all the time. Then don't even start on the pedals, right? Like, that's why I came out with the Catalyst pedals, because the truth is like standing on the balls of your feet is not, you know, create a strong balanced foot. So how are you going to be able to really effectively create pressure and you know, at your feet if you're already dealing with an unbalanced foot? And so so you're already kind of fighting a couple things. So one, make sure you're using a midfoot position. You're gonna have a really tough time keeping your foot on the pedal on the ball of your foot. It's not where you're supposed to be anyways. And it's all a bunch of, you know, more myths and half truths. You know, being on, again, kettlebell swings. Do a set of kettlebell swings on the balls of your feet and tell me how agile you feel, right? You can't do it. You have to have your heels down. You have to have your feet stable. And so same thing. So, you know, make sure you're trying to use a midfoot position, because that will allow you to more effectively apply pressure into the pedals and keep your feet grounded. And spend time training barefoot. You know, get your feet stronger and more alive. And then and two, make sure that you're not using stiff-soled shoes. Like, that's why I like the 510 free riders with the thin sole, because again, it allows me to feel my pedal. I can effectively apply pressure. You don't want a big, cushy, soft sole. You don't want a dead stiff sole. You know, you want something that allows your foot to apply pressure and react to pressure. And so yeah, so that's, you know, getting your foot set up to work properly is really the biggest thing that you can do to try to learn how to do that. But yeah, and then just kind of time and practice, man. It'll happen, trust me. I mean, after a year of riding flats, your feet will be way better, and your body will just have learned it instinctively. But unfortunately, mountain bikers, we're not bred for the long run, right? We don't come into this sport with people telling us like, hey, bro, you know, it's probably gonna be 5, 6, 7 years before you really start to feel like you know what you're doing out there on a really consistent basis. And, you know, 10 years, so you really start to feel like you've kind of mastered some things. But even then, you know, you're gonna be like, oh crap, there's always stuff I can work on. You know, we're just not encouraged with that attitude. So, you know, we don't have the long view of stuff. So, you know, just relax and enjoy the journey. And if it takes you 6 months to a year, it's fine. It's totally fine. You know, if it doesn't happen in 6 weeks, it doesn't mean it's not gonna happen. So anyway, so hopefully that answers your question there. All right, I got one more here. Sergio, 90% of my riding time, I go standing pedaling and always have pressure on my hands. Exactly, right? The mantra light hands, heavy feet didn't make sense to me. I thought it was me doing something wrong, but now it makes terms and sense of, yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, that's a good point, Sergio. And that's one of the things that I've noticed in working with riders. That's, you know, I've had a chance to work with a lot of riders. And, you know, I see this light hands, heavy feet. That's the biggest problem, is people won't get into a good, strong standing pedaling position. I've talked about this, like standing pedaling is a totally different posture. You want to get forward. You want to move your hips forward, stand up, get your chest opened up, you know, get your shoulders over your handlebars. And so, but you can't do that if you know, aren't going to put weight on your hands. So what a lot of people do is they use like kind of an elevated seated pedaling posture and try and use that as their standing pedaling posture. And then they say, oh, standing pedaling's hard and I can't maintain traction and all this stuff. And it's like, well, I don't know what you're doing, but that's not standing pedaling, whatever you're doing there. But yeah, man, when you stand up, you're going to have some pressure on your palms. And so anyways, I think so you got any other things? Cool. Everybody's saying learned a lot. Yep. Flat Pedal Revolution Manifesto. Yeah, if you guys haven't had a chance to check that out, I definitely encourage everybody to check that out. You got the truth on the pedal stroke. It's really kind of wild stuff. And my next webinar I'm going to do is going to be on the pedal stroke, and I'll tell a little bit more about my story. But it's just funny. Like, I didn't come into this trying to disprove clipless pedals. I actually went into it trying to prove how clipless pedals work, so I could create better training programs for the riders that I was training that had clipless pedals. So I went into it trying to actually help solidify and prove what was going on with the clipless pedals. And then you find out, like, oh, wait a minute, that's not what the guy at the bike shop told me. Oh shit. So anyways, all right. I think the shoulders banking is going to change things. Yeah. The banking the shoulders is a big, will definitely change. And that's you know, goes against the usual advice of the leaning the body. You got to lean the body. So, you know, let the shoulders be alive, and that will, you know, help things out a lot. So, anyways, I think that's it. I got a few more people coming on. I don't see any more questions. coming in. So I think unless somebody throws another one up there, I'm going to go ahead and sign off on this, and apologize again for the sound issues. Unfortunately, always at the mercy of our internet provider here, and you know, I'm sure people can sympathize and have had some of the same issues. But so yeah, that's it. But just remember, take home points. You know, focus on how things should feel. If it feels right, it will always look right. But it can look right and not feel right at all, and be totally missing the point and the real drivers there. So focus on causes, not symptoms, and you know, practicing good movement in the gym and then applying it to the bike, and all of that will help just reinforce the gym time, helps reinforce the bike time helps reinforce the gym, and it all works together. So and that's the big goal. So all right, I'll show my notes to my PT so we can work on my dysfunctions. Excellent, Lori. That's really the thing too, is the take home point is, you know, for you guys, the you know, it is just understanding the big picture and saying like, okay, what do I need to work on? And it's not just ride my bike and not just do the fun stuff. Although if you look at it the right way, I tell people this all the time, like, I don't really like working out, but I like the results from working out. And I when I look at things, okay, push-ups, you know, upper body, practicing my ability to move through my cockpit, you know, properly. So, you know, connecting these things together really starts to bring things together. So, all right, guys. Well, I guess that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. And again, thanks for taking the time to join me. And hopefully the replay comes out well. And yeah, any questions or anything like that, you guys can reach me at james@bikejames.com. And I will talk to you guys next time.